Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And we start out, and Dr. Lopkin, brace yourself. I know you're an emotional person, not only brilliant, but emotional. Goodbye, Nancy. And does that bring a tear to your eye? Plus, I will say something else. I saw a Fox show, forgot who was the host, that she's someone that has always failed up. I mean, people don't realize, like, Biden called her the most effective congressional figure in modern history. She's actually lost the House like 3 times. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I believe she's the only speaker that lost the House, lost her position, gained it back, lost it again. So, I mean, her career is amazing. She has done nothing for her constituency.
I disagree. She took San Francisco, probably the most beautiful place on planet Earth, and destroyed it.
Yes. Well, okay, I'll rephrase. She's done nothing positive for her
There you go.
constituency. And
Accuracy is key on this show.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And not only has she failed upwards, but now she wants to hand her seat to her daughter.
Oh, wait a second. I have to say this. I saw her daughter on a show, had to be, God, time flies, 10 years ago. You talk about white privilege or economic privilege, dumber than rocks. There you go.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. And let's
Dumb
face
shit.
it, every politician that hands their position off to a child thinks they're creating a dynasty like the Kennedys. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's take a look at some of the people that positions have been passed down to. You have Rosa DeLauro, who's been absolutely useless. The only reason she's in the position is because it was her father's position. You have Chris Dodd. Remember Chris Dodd?
Oh, yeah, he ran for president. Hello, talk about being delusional.
Ran for president, never managed to beat the margin of error. You have on the other side of the aisle,
although
Mitt
he did
Romney.
make one good accomplishment, because I thought she was pretty hot in her day. He fooled around while he was married to a Channel 3 newscaster.
Yes.
I think that's his best accomplishment. There you go.
On the other side of the aisle, you've got Mitt Romney. Not exactly a Mensa candidate.
Wait. I have to interject. That is so fascinating that you said that. Because he's another example of, let's just say, economic/white privilege. Dumber than rocks. His father was an accomplished guy, non-college grad, but still an intelligent person, right? Romney is a dumb shit that I actually agree with Perry during the debate, because I experience Bain. It is vulture capitalism. You hire Bain not to start an innovation wing in your company. You hire Bain because you don't have the ho-hos to fire people yourself. End of story.
Yeah, so we've got all of these people that have handed their seats down. And I mean, let's not forget, they all think they're going to be Kennedys. Well, let's take a good look at the Kennedys, because other than Bobby and JFK, this is not a group of winners either.
It's like a white trash festival, to be honest with you. And I love Carolyn Kennedy. You know, all the privilege in the world. Went to, I'm sure, Brown University. She lost her election bid in Massachusetts because she's so frigging stupid. I'm sorry, it's just a fact. She was so dumb that in the debates it was like Forrest Gump. But she's got all the looks and all the accoutrements, dumber than rocks.
And basically, that's what this is. This is trying to pass down a career to children that can't make it in the private sector.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, I agree 100%. It's not going to happen. I think Jeffries is going to be the Speaker of the House. And I love that the Democrats always talk about election deniers. He explicitly said that Trump was an illegitimate president. What's the problem here?
They They never point out the election deniers in their own party. Hillary Clinton still says she won 2016 and there was fraud. Stacey Abrams went for years claiming, oh no, it was a fraudulent election. The Democrats have been claiming. There are still Democrats that say George W. Bush was elected due to fraud. They
Actually, you know something, you bring that up. That's actually an amazingly good point. That's when it first happened, because there was election irregularities back in the 60s with Kennedy gerrymandering Chicago, harvesting ballots with Daley. But the first election deniers were Democrats in
yes.
2000. No doubt. History
So, I mean,
is silent, isn't it?
oh, absolutely. And that's why they don't teach history in school anymore, so that they can deny all this stuff happened.
Oh, they teach history. It might be convoluted
Yeah,
and has
it's
no basis in reality, Dr.
right.
Locke. But yeah, I teach, nuclear physics. It doesn't mean, oh my God, we'll move on from that. So the FTX, the founder of the Bitcoin exchange, funneled millions, maybe $1 billion, to Democratic causes. They say, and you know more about this than I do, that it could be the biggest scandal in American finance, bigger than Enron, bigger than Madoff.
Yeah, that's what
not just the
saying.
funneling. I'm talking about the malfeasance.
Freed was basically using FTX as his personal piggy bank. He funded through a super PAC money to Democrats who, by the way, have all been asked if they'll be returning the money, and not one of them has said they will. But this was bigger than just one man committing fraud, because this goes to the heart of cryptocurrency. And what people don't seem to understand about cryptocurrency is that it has no intrinsic value. It's not like a commodity like gold or silver. Gold or silver have uses. Silver is used in electronics, in antibacterial systems. Gold is also used in electronics. These are minerals that actually have uses beyond investment.
Mm-hmm.
Cryptocurrency has no value. It's basically like art. It is only as valuable as somebody is willing to pay. It is all speculation.
Unless you're hunters, Art.
Well, and that's the other thing. Crypto was created. People forget this. Bitcoin was primarily used by criminals to avoid the government being able to track their money. So the fact that cryptocurrency is now at the heart of what could be the biggest financial scandal in history shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. And the whole reason he was funneling money to the Democrats is because he knew what he was doing and was trying to influence regulators to keep himself protected.
No, without any question. My only question to you is Bitcoin. If this was in the Wayback Machine, 1970, I think your argument is 1,000% correct. But explain to me and our listeners, what's the difference between American currency, since Nixon moved us off the gold standard, to cryptocurrency? Is it really all that much different?
Well, I mean, in a technical way, not really. In an actual way, though, it is, because American currency is backed by the faith in the U.S. government that other countries have. It's because we've never failed to pay our bills, despite the fact, we keep shutting the government down for a week or two at a time while we argue budgets. The world has faith that the American government will back its commitments. Cryptocurrency has no such backing, not from any country, not from any company, there is nothing behind it.
Well, I'll interject something as a human dinosaur, which I freely admit I never got cryptocurrency. I think anyone who invested in it, yes, it basically no different than going to Vegas. It was a spin of the wheel, the roulette wheel, and that's it.
It really is. And I do want to separate because there's two terms that are used pretty much interconnectedly, and it's cryptocurrency and blockchain. Cryptocurrency is what we're talking about here that has no intrinsic value. It's basically a speculative investment. Blockchain is the technology used to build cryptocurrency. Blockchain has value. Blockchain has industrial uses. Blockchain has security uses. So there is a difference between the two. So if somebody starts talking about blockchain and all they're referring to is cryptocurrency, they don't know anything about blockchain.
Excellent point, Dr. Lopkin. Um, Speaking about having no value, we have Gavin Newsom. I love this. I cannot take credit for this. I was listening to some editorial person saying he looks like something out of Central Casting. Good looking guy, middle age, 45, whatever he is. Dumber than rocks, though. Thinks he's going to be president. Meanwhile, California, no reason for this on Earth, on planet Earth, is now has a $25 billion deficit. And you said this, Dr. Lopkin. His slogan should be, I'll do for America what I did to California.
Absolutely. And the fact that they have that deficit now shows how woke policies fail because California had a surplus. It was bailed out in the American Rescue Act, same as New York was bailed out, Connecticut was bailed out, I believe Illinois was bailed out. All of these faltering Democratic run states that could not keep themselves afloat were bailed out by the American Rescue Plan. The fact that in this quickly California squandered that money, and it's not just California. I mean, Connecticut, we just had a gubernatorial election where the governor was touting the surplus we have. Oh, and it's great. But one of the things he never mentioned is the fact that revenues in Connecticut are falling. So we don't have the income coming into the state to keep all of this stuff going that was bailed out by the American Rescue Plan.
A little minor oversight. It was not intentional, right. I'm sure. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I think hopefully that will put the kibosh on him. Maybe not hopefully, because if he runs, I think that would be great entertainment. Again, dumber than rocks in the Pelosi family tree. So he's got that DNA of obviously genius. It'll be great to see him. So I hope he still runs.
To be fair, it's not genetics because he married into the Pelosi family.
Oh, there you go. But
so it's
but guilt by association. How does that sound? There you go. Sorry, my bad.
And that's something that you do have to look at because Newsom is he's running for president. He's running for president. The results of the midterm actually energized Biden. So now it's actually much more likely that Biden will be running for re-election. Now, we've talked about this in the past. When an incumbent is challenged in a primary, and it's happened to both parties, the incumbent has always won and then lost the general.
Yeah, no question about it. My little takeaway on that in terms of Biden's prospects is they put the Band-Aid on a lot of shit, excuse my language. The Band-Aid's coming off. You're going to have heating shortages, inflationary pressures on people just barely surviving to heat their house and pay for fuel. I think I've learned this in life and I've learned this in the business world. Sometimes your worst moments happen when you think you're a rock star, Dr. Lopkin?
Oh, absolutely. And I have to wonder how many people that voted Democrat started you know, feeling bad about that decision when they went out to buy their Thanksgiving dinner. Because while inflation overall is only up, I believe, 7.5%, the items that go into a Thanksgiving dinner are actually up 20% from last year.
Well, inflation is a bunch of BS. Okay,
It,
they measure home prices. They may measure things. They have changed. They've moved the goalposts. If you measured in 1975 inflationary standards, the inflation's probably approaching in the teens
yeah, well,
for things
again,
that actually people buy.
for the things that people rely on, which they tend to poo poo when they report the inflation
Of
numbers.
course, because they
But
did it on purpose.
food, yeah, food, grocery items, fuel, these are all up more than doubled, double digits. Most of them are up almost 20% year over year. So while Biden is going, oh, it's not so bad. Look, it dropped a percent, since last month. It's like, no, it's actually up 20% for the things that people use most.
And here's the last rub on all this. Knowing that Biden is completely incapacitated mentally, he's probably at the level of like a fifth grader. He's not going to have the ability, he has 0.0 ability to have the fireside chats. He's going to get angry, he's going to get pissed, and it's going to spiral down. But we
Well,
will see how this all unfolds. Go ahead.
actually, I'm looking forward to seeing him attempt to campaign when he can't hide in his basement.
Oh, that's so fantastic. That yes, I observed that as well. Didn't know what show it was on. He's going to have to get out there. He's going to have to go to battleground states. Let's face it. If it wasn't for COVID, he would have never won. He's going to have to go out there. Every time he speaks, it's exponentially worse. He could be in Philadelphia and say it's a great time in San Francisco. Really warm. I can see the Golden Gate Bridge from here. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Going
no,
to be brutal.
it's been getting worse and worse. It's not helped by the fact that his press secretary doesn't know what she's talking about. So
No. That's indicative of checking off the boxes.
Oh,
Gay,
yes,
African American, immigrant, 1, 2, 3. You're on first base. There you go.
that's it. That's what the entire Biden administration has been about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, the number one in diversity, last place in competence. There you go. It will be interesting though as a new Congress takes shape, barely squeaking out the victory, I might add. I think in large measure due to the Trump factor, but that's another show. The investigations into Biden. And you have 60 Minutes, which I used to watch Dr. Lopkin when I was a youngster many, many moons ago. It's just a political hack show now. You had Leslie Stahl saying, basically confronting Trump, saying it's not proof. Now, 2 years after the election, oh my God, we've done the groundbreaking research. Groundbreaking. That is actually might be true. That's not the 60 Minutes that with Mike Wallace. That's pretty much like Beavis and Butthead.
Well, it wasn't 60 Minutes that did the investigation. It was the CBS,
It was
News
CBS,
Division. Yes.
Yeah, I got it. But still, Leslie Stahl,
but that's
Trump.
yes, but that's an important difference to point out because the managing editor, the person in charge of the CBS Evening News, which is where everything flows down from, is Norah O'Donnell. And Norah O'Donnell was one of those journalists that had secret meetings with Hillary Clinton.
Whoa. She's in charge of CBS News?
She's the managing editor of the CBS Evening News, which is
I've always thought of her as the typical quintessential liberal. Never worked a day in her life. Oh, Nora probably grew up in the Beltway or some other place like that. And a complete political hack. If she wasn't managing editor, okay, her ratings are pretty much I think Carnivore Radio has more or less
Yeah, I mean
zero,
CBS
zero, zero, zero.
the CBS Evening News ratings are barely beating out CNN. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And it's because of their woke bullshit where they covered up um, McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy stated that when the Republicans take over the Congress in January, they are going to block certain Democrats from being on committees. And one of the
And they
ones he
should.
mentioned was Adam Schiff. And the
Good.
reason that they're blocking Adam Schiff is because he kept going out and lying to the American people. Well,
Knowing he was
CBS,
lying.
right. Well, CBS News kept having him on. He would lie right there to them, and not one of these so called journalists ever challenged him on it.
Well, it brings back really the unfortunate story is that it used to be the third rail of government or the fourth rail of government. It's not any of that. They're all political hacks, and they've enabled someone that's mentally deficient to become president. They knew all along. CNN, Seltzer's now at Harvard. I think Harvard's going the way of a community college. Have they pissed away all their relevancy or what?
It seems so. I mean, hiring Brian Stelter as a professional, as a professor.
Well,
We also
professional.
just heard,
Yeah.
but both Harvard and Yale are now getting rid of the LSATs to judge
Because it's racist.
students coming into the law school. Now, I should point out, Yale is saying, "Oh, we're not going to use the LSATs; they're biased." There have been quite a number of federal judges who have announced they will not accept clerks from Yale Law School anymore because Yale is not teaching them what they need to learn.
What you say is fascinating to me, Dr. Lopkin. I think that's going to be an increasing trend of prestigious universities and colleges who piss everything away because they think they're entitled to their position in life, and people are going to go to other schools, other universities that actually have some type of rigor. I know because I had my MBA. Not that it's a big effing deal, but I had to study for the GMATs, and I'm sorry, it is something. What it is, whatever. But yeah, I had to study. I had to get a certain score to get into the school I got into. That's just a fact of life. It is a certain degree of rigor. Do you agree with that?
It is.
And you take it away, and so you have these idiots going like our press secretary, and basically, what does that do to the whole prestige of Harvard Law? I think it destroys it. How does that sound?
It really does. I mean, the so-called, I mean, we've seen it going on at UC Berkeley, where they said, well, the California education system isn't turning out good students anymore. We keep having to put them in remedial math and English classes. So you know what? We're going to remove the math and English requirements. Well, guess what? When you get into the real world, you need to do math. You need to be able to keep track of your money. English is important. You need to be able to communicate.
Now, social justice is so much more important. They'll come out with good little citizens who know absolutely nothing about nothing. And China and our other adversaries will laugh all the way to the bank.
Well,
again, suicide of a superpower.
I saw a clip yesterday. I don't remember what show it was for. It was for one of the news shows, and of course, they cherry picked this clip because it was hysterical. but they sent somebody out, man on the street interviews, asking people, where did the pilgrims land when they arrived at the New World? And one of the people said Fort Lauderdale. And
Of
it's like,
course, because it was
really?
spring break. It was spring
Of course.
break, Dr.
Really?
Lobster.
You don't know that the pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock? I mean, this was.
That's not important because they were
I mean,
racist. They were racist anyway.
For God's sakes, we need to start rerunning Schoolhouse Rock during prime time so people will learn something.
It'd probably be actually the way we're dummied down. You'd probably have that first year college. There you go.
Yeah.
January 6th hearing. I think that fell like a lead balloon. They did everything they could to resurrect, put the patient on life support. I believe if you're an MSNBC watcher, you probably were glued to it with popcorn and your Chardonnay. Any normal person that actually had a job could give a shit.
No, the vast majority of America has, said in polls over and over again that it just wasn't important. But the reason it wasn't important is because they failed to find anything. Liz Cheney herself said, well, if the January 6th committee can find something, it'll be turned over to the Justice Department, and we expect they'll, follow up and bring charges. Now, of course, the Justice Department didn't have anything. January 6th committee gave them no evidence. And now, so Garland can get out of the middle of this, he's appointing a special counsel. This is the ultimate passing the buck, because the January 6th committee found no evidence against Trump. The DOJ found no evidence against Trump. So now let's give it to a special counsel, and then he'll look at it for the next 2 years, release a report that nobody will read that says, we didn't find anything. And of
100%
course,
agreed.
And then, of
even
course,
though
Adam Schiff will go on television saying, we've proved that he tried to commit insurrection.
Yeah, no, there's no question. Although the special prosecutor isn't exactly a neutral observer, but surprise, surprise, I know that comes as a shock to you. Now, speaking of, I don't really want to give it too much time. Connecticut Democratic operative was arrested and got a jail sentence for ballot harvesting. Surprise, surprise, correct?
Yeah, well, this is the problem with the mail-in ballots.
They're
not secure. The Democrats have been pushing this because it is easy to harvest them, it is easy to recreate them, and it is easy to commit election fraud with them. Take a look. The fact that there are still congressional races uncalled because they're still counting these ballots is part of the problem, because the longer it takes. Now, remember, I used to be a political consultant. The things I'm talking about, I have seen firsthand. Boxes of absentee ballots mysteriously showing up. Oh, they were accidentally put under a desk. Now that the incumbent is losing, we have to count these. Absentee ballots from opposing districts have been found in dumpsters. This is not, hyperbole. This is not speculation. These are things I have seen firsthand. The only reason to promote absentee ballots, unless you absolutely cannot get to a voting booth, is to commit election fraud. And what kills me is that, this guy was arrested in Connecticut. The state of Connecticut was actually running an ad campaign telling people that the absentee ballots had to be received by 8 p.m. on election day. And they were saying, if you're using a collection box outside of your town hall, it needs to be in that collection box before 8 p.m. on election day. if you can get to a collection box on election day, you can get to the voting machines.
It's listen. It is the hijacking of our elections. It's Alinsky's theory on rules for radicals, and the Democrats really have no interest in American tradition. They care about power, and they'll do anything, including destroying the integrity of our elections was at the pinnacle of American democracy over the last 30 years is going completely in the shitter.
It has. And let's face facts. The elections are essentially run by the parties and by the secretaries of state. Well, the secretaries of state are elected officials. They're part of a party. So why do we expect that they're going to be nonpartisan and uphold fairness
Well,
rather than
no,
support
Dr.
their
Lopkin, they're
party?
doing it for the good of the country. They
Oh, of course.
suspend all their ideology. And I have a bridge to sell you.
Right.
It's called the Portland Bridge. Okay, a Connecticut reference. On a more positive note, after screwing around for 30 years with the space shuttle that we already talked about did absolutely nothing, suborbit, looks like we're ramping up sustained moon exploration and possibly settlements or stations, which we should have done 20 years ago. I think that's a good thing.
I think that's an amazing thing. Yes. Over the past several days, we've gotten photos from the Artemis capsule. We've gotten data sent back to Earth from the Artemis capsule. Everything is not only running as expected, it's actually running better than expected. This is a huge win for NASA. And it's a huge win for America because, and I'm amazed at how many Americans don't know this, but we're not simply shooting a rocket to the moon for the sake of doing it. There are resources on the moon that we're going to be able to use, and we are in another space race, this time with China. China is ramping up their space program. They're trying to get to the moon before we can get back. So, yeah, this is actually important, not just for science, which it is, but for national security, because there
And
is no
also the potentially, who knows, but potentially the imagination of young people. When I was a kid, many moons ago, I remember going to science fairs and kids had this whole thing and they took the Pirates Bowl that was their kind of space station on the moon, or it was a whole exuberance about the potentiality of what could happen. I hope that gets rekindled because we need more people focused on science, interested in science, and hopefully that captures some of the imagination of Americans.
Absolutely. And the other thing to remember about setting up a moon base is that it is much easier to assemble and launch a spaceship from the moon than it is Earth. So this gives us the launching pad to go further, finally go further into the into the solar system with manned spacecraft and have people land on Mars. Possibly going even further to the moons of Jupiter and Saturn.
There was without a question, long overdue, but I'm not being negative. I find that highly encouraging. Not so encouraging is this is encouraging, the uprisings against the mullahs in Iran, but where's our woke administration? I hear crickets.
Yeah, the
I
people
thought
of
they were.
Iran are finally standing up to their leaders. And if any of our listeners happen to see the World Cup game where Iran competed, the Iranian team refused to stand for their national anthem.
This is
That
huge.
this
An
is
amazing take down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev moment. But Weekend at Bernie's and the sorority sister are more worried about fumes from a bus.
Yeah, because they're still trying to resurrect
God,
the Iran nuclear deal. The Iran nuclear deal was a bad idea when Obama signed it. It's why Trump backed out of it. And also let's be very clear about this. Trump didn't simply back out of it because we never ratified the treaty. Treaties have to be ratified in Congress. The president cannot sign a treaty without Congress agreeing to it. Congress never agreed to the Iran deal. This was something Obama did on his own. Trump went, well, I'm not pushing this through Congress. It's not worth it. And
not worth it.
Biden
It's
is
detrimental.
Yes, and Biden is trying to resurrect this piece of garbage. And
Well,
now that the Republicans have taken back the House, he knows he's not going to be able to get it ratified.
thank God, the biggest promoter of Iran and enabler and empowerer of Iran was Barack Hussein Obama. Number one, no one really knows that. They took, they navigated or hacked one of our drones and landed it. Instead of, and I'm not a big fan of Cheney, the ex vice president, he said, why didn't we launch a crew? We should have. So they got all our technology. Guess who's supplying drones to Russia? Hello. And then
Yeah, we've seen
billions and trillions of dollars or billions of dollars in the middle of the night. You have to wonder whose side was he really on? And we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. We have seen the Iranian drones being used by Russia in Ukraine.
Thanks to us.
And yeah, it's our fault. We did
Hello.
not. And I mean, it always struck me as odd. We are sending drones into enemy territory. Why do we not have some sort of self-destruct on them?
We talked about that when we were in terrestrial radio.
Yes.
It's like, hello. Yeah, really? Like, who's a genius who didn't think it? Basically, if you had a real president that Barack Obama was not, I would have the head of Raytheon in my office saying, listen, you dumb shit, why didn't you have a destruct button? Hello? Like, obviously it can be hacked. But anyway, that's another story. We'll finish up on, again, alluding to the hearings that are upcoming hearings. It's going to be great. It's going to be great entertainment. I suggest everyone get a real popcorn machine, not a microwave, but the one with the drip down butter, all that kind of stuff. But we're going to also possibly see Mayorkas being impeached. There's no better person that no more deserving of a person than this anti-American traitor.
Well, it's funny because I was talking about this with my wife earlier because she was saying, well, Mayorkas isn't smart enough to resign, so they're going to have to impeach him. And I have a different take on this because if I was Mayorkas and I had done all of this shit, I wouldn't resign either. I would force the impeachment because during the impeachment investigation, Mayorkas is completely capable to go, these were my directives from the president. This is what I was told I had to do, and lay it at Biden's feet.
Agreed. Your
because
wife
we
said
know
that?
this is his policy. No, I said this to her.
Okay, because I agree with you. Yes, I was going to give a shout out to her. 100%. But doesn't it go to a bigger picture, Dr. Lopkin? Is that even though the Republicans didn't get the Senate, it looks like they're going to lose Georgia because you have 70 IQ Walker. He's going to definitely lose. Basically, these hearings are going to point to the incompetency of Biden. You're going to look at corruption with Hunter. You're going to look at incompetency, and basically not just by dumb incompetence, but by design, destroying our borders. It ain't going to play real well in 2024, is it?
No, it's not going to play well. And the thing is, if they do this right, then you're
If.
going to, if, yes, if the Republicans do this right, starting with Hunter Biden, because we've already seen the New York Times, the Washington Post, we talked about CBS. They're all going, oh, no, the Hunter Biden laptop was legitimate. If they start with that investigation, it has now become clear that the liberal media is not going to protect Biden. They're
Great analysis. Yes.
they're going to let this through. Well, if you start there and you go, okay, this is the malfeasance we found here. Now we're looking at the malfeasance here. If the liberal media starts going, oh no, this is a right-wing conspiracy, it's like, no, 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 no. You just showed that there was malfeasance.
A
Now let's see
thousand
where it
trillion
goes.
percent. And it does lead into the bigger picture. Is it about, again, with liberalism and Democrats, that you're only as good as when you're of use to them. Yes, he did win the midterms, figuratively. Do they still need to get rid of him? So we will see how that goes, but it will be great entertainment. And Dr. Lotkin, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, and happy Thanksgiving to all of our listeners.
Very good. And they can tune in next week, and they can also basically put their suggestions in, can't they?
Yeah, let us know what you're thinking. Let us know your opinions. You go to exvadio.com/connect. That's exvadio.com/connect. And of course, you can listen to every episode of Carnivore Radio at exvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
And we are growing, Dr. Lopkin, as we move into the new year, aren't we?
We are, and we're looking forward to the new year, and let's see where it takes us.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Happy Thanksgiving.
Back at you. We'll see you next time.